Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Randana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Randana. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Hari Vritikacharya Ashto Tadasata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Hari Vritikacharya Ashto Tadasata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. ISKCON Guru Vrinda Ki Jai. Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai. Jagannath Dham Ki Jai. The Transcendental Lordship Shri Shri Panchatattva Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Madhava Astasaki Ki Jai. Shri Shri Prahlad Nrsimha Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 17th chapter. Chapter is entitled Punishment and Reward of Kali. And today we're on text 6. Today is also the Avirbhav of Sita Devi, Sita Navami, and also the Avirbhav of Janava Devi. and the disappearance day of Madhu Pandit. So I've got 4 classes to give in an hour. So we'll move through this quickly. I don't know how much I'll cover and all of that, but I'll try my best. I need the kripa of the Vaishnavas. Okay. Yas tvam kṛṣṇe gate dūram saha-gāṇḍīva-dhanvanā śocyo śocyaḥ rahasi praharan vadham arhasi yas tvam kṛṣṇe gate dūram saha-gāṇḍīva-dhanvanā śocyo śocyaḥ rahasi praharan vadham arhasi. Please chant. Vaishnavis? Tvam kṛṣṇe gate dūram saha-gāṇḍīva-dhanvanā śocyo śocyaḥ rahasi praharan vadham arhasi. Ya, on account of tvam, you rogue, kṛṣṇe, Lord Kṛṣṇa, gate, having gone away, dūram, out of sight, saha, along with, Gāṇḍīva, the bow named Gāṇḍīva, dhanvanā, the carrier Arjuna, śocyaḥ, culprit, arhasi, you are considered, aśocyān, innocent, rahasi, in a secluded place, praharan, beating, vadham, to be killed, arhasi, deserve. You rogue, do you dare beat an innocent cow because Lord Kṛṣṇa and Arjuna, the carrier of the Gāṇḍīva bow, are out of sight? Since you are beating the innocent in a secluded place, you are considered a culprit and therefore deserve to be killed. Purport. In a civilization where God is conspicuously banished and there's no devotee warrior like Arjuna, the associates of the age of Kali take advantage of this lawless kingdom and arrange to kill innocent animals like the cow in secluded slaughterhouses. Such murderers of animals stand to be condemned to death by the order of a pious king like Mahārāja Parīkṣit. For a pious king, the culprit who kills an animal in a secluded place is punishable by the death penalty, exactly like the murderer who kills an innocent child in a secluded place. Om Agyanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umlitam Gena Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, I don't know if this has been covered in previous classes, but one may wonder, how did this cow and bull and this person dressed as a king, how did they manifest before Mahārāja Parīkṣit? Anybody know the answer? That's a tricky one. Okay, so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he gives the answer in his commentary on in the previous chapter on text 19. It's 1.16.9. And he says, because of the deep devotion, Mahārāja Parīkṣit, he was touring his kingdom because there were signs of the entrance of Kali, and he was meditating upon the amazing relationship that his forefathers, the Pandavas, had with Krishna, the love. And he was just so absorbed in it, it was an ecstasy. So in the midst of that deep meditation, the cow and the bull and Kali personified weren't manifest to any other people. It was just a Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So he had that kind of vision, the mystic vision in this deep meditative mood that he was in. So that's the answer, okay? According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Now, it's a pretty heavy purport, so we'll get into that. One thing that came to my mind when I was going through this last chapter and this chapter was a question. Actually, in the first chapter of the Bhagavatam, the sages of Naimisharanya, through the voice of Shonaka Rishi, asked 6 questions of Sutta Goswami. And the last question, this is the last verse in the first chapter, is like this. Since Sri Krishna, the Absolute Truth, the master of all mystic powers, has departed for his own abode, please tell us to whom the religious principles have now gone for shelter. Okay, so there's an answer to that the acharyas give. Of course, these questions, these 6 questions, they kind of come up and they're answered in different portions of the Bhagavatam. But they're very significant questions. Most of them are answered in the first 2 or 3 chapters of the Bhagavatam. But anybody know the answer to that question? Okay, I'm just keeping you awake here, keeping your brains active. So, see, the point is that the behind this question is the reason that Krishna appears in the first place. Anybody know why he came? Several reasons, but at least the exoteric, the external reason, the main reason is given in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, there you go. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhutanam adharmasya tatatmanam shajamyaham. Whenever there is a decline in religious principles and a predominance of irreligion, then I myself manifest. So he's there to kind of clear things up like that. So that's prompting, this kind of understanding is prompting the sages of Naimisharanya. What's going to happen now that Krishna's left? So, 3rd chapter of the first canto, verse 43. Kṛṣṇe swadamo pagate dharma ganadibhi saha kalo nashta dusham esha Puranako dinodita. This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it is manifest just after the departure of Lord Kṛṣṇa, accompanied by knowledge and religion. And persons who are whose vision, how's it go? Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance of the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. 3 verses before, Sutta Goswami describes how the Bhagavatam is a literary incarnation of God, and that Vyasadeva is the incarnation of God. So that's the answer. So now, Bhagavatam, it's the sound representation of Krishna. And therefore it's the full representation of religious principles and transcendental knowledge. All right. I just, in the purport, there's a description of how murderers of animals stand to be condemned to death by a pious king like Mahārāja Parīkṣit. Similarly, because he's killing them in a secluded place, similarly, one who kills an innocent child in a secluded place is punishable by death. So, prior to giving this class, I referenced Sri Google. I'm joking here. And they're out of the all of the births worldwide, 29% end in abortion. Wow. And on a yearly basis, there are over 300 million cows killed worldwide. Whew, pretty heavy, huh? And why is that? We don't have personalities like Mahārāja Parīkṣit as rulers. When Prabhupada was present, there's a devotee who's now a lawyer in Florida, in Alachua, Florida, Balavanta Prabhu. He was a GBC for many years. And he got inspiration to run for president of the United States on the In God We Trust party. He didn't make it, but Prabhupada was very enthusiastically encouraging him in this regard, because it's what's really needed. Okay, so here's an interesting quote from the 4th canto, 18th chapter, 3rd verse. This is the Prabhupada's purport. If people follow the injunctions given by the great sages, Shruti Smriti, they can actually be happy in both this life and the next. Unfortunately, rascals are manufacturing so many ways and means to be happy. Everyone is inventing so many methods. Consequently, human society has lost the standard ways of life, both materially and spiritually. And as a result, people are bewildered and there's no peace or happiness in the world. Although they're trying to solve the problems of human society in the United Nations, they are still baffled. It doesn't work, because they do not follow the liberated instructions of the Vedas. They're unhappy. Anybody here from Russia or the Ukraine? Please raise your hand. Got one person there. I mean, look what Putin's doing there. It's crazy. And I just in a discussion with a couple devotees, it's even maybe crazier what's going on in North Korea. There's a dictator there that, in order to keep control of the populace, he's put 11 million people into starvation. Many people have died. When he assumed the dictatorship, He killed about 400 people, including his family members, just to secure his power. If someone doesn't stand up when he comes into an assembly, he's executed. If, someone that fell asleep when he was getting a lecture, we may do this here in the Bhagavatam class too, so watch out. Someone that fell asleep in one of his lectures was executed. Talk about being the center of the universe and thinking himself the supreme controller. Anyway, let's get back on track here. So there is solutions to these issues. There's solutions. Kaler dosha nidhe rajan ashtiyeko mahan gunan kirtanadeva krishnasya mukta sangha param bhajet. Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, but there's one very, very good quality in this age, is that simply by chanting Hare Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. Now, and he can free from material bondage, promoted to the kingdom of transcendental kingdom. So that's from the 12th canto, 3rd chapter. And then in the 5th chapter of the 11th canto, there's very powerful statements about the advantages of Kali Yuga, of having Putins. And anyway, there's been so many crazy things in my lifetime, what to speak of what's going to be coming up ahead, unless each of you really get it together and chant super good rounds, become empowered to spread Krishna consciousness. The world's definitely changing. There's all these crazy things going on, but simultaneously there's an emergence of a whole army of Mahārāja Parīkṣit type people. Shashikant, Rajendra Kumar. Okay, sometimes the names they're not always there. And people that are just ready to go for it. And as they chant better and better, offenselessly, they become more and more empowered. I mean, there's amazing changes that have taken place in Mayapur since I moved here in 1997. There's so many Bengali devotees that come, take darshan, so many more Bengali brahmacharis. I think there was about 100 Bengali brahmacharis when I came. Now what is it, about 500? About 500, something like that. And what to speak of, the whole community, 5,000 devotees. But all of the people from West Bengal are becoming acutely aware of Sridhar Mayapur and of the process. They're taking it up more and more and more. And it's not just Mayapur. Look what's happening in Russia. I mean, this whole crazy thing with Putin and the Ukraine and all the devotees put into difficult situations. But so many people in Russia, because it's such a crazy place, are becoming devotees. I just heard that for the first time in history there will be a Bengali Bhakti Shastri, there'll be a Chinese Bhakti Shastri course in China. So things are starting to change. And it's actually our responsibility to have compassion for all these people that are suffering because of the ignorance of leaders and the ignorance that they acquire because of ignorance leaders. There's no proper education. We got slaughterhouses, not just for cows, but for young kids, not just in the abortion clinics, but also in the educational systems. They're not taught how they can be genuine, achieve real happiness, as Srila Prabhupada describes in the Nectar of Devotion, not the false happiness of sense gratificatory pursuits. Okay, so getting back to the 11th canto, 5th chapter, 32nd verse, one of my favorite verses. Those that have heard some of my classes, I probably have quoted it practically every class because it's just so significant. 11.5.32. Krishna varnam tasha krishnam sango pangrashtra parshadam jagnai sankirtana prayer yajanti hi samedasa. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons worship the incarnation of Godhead, who's not blackish, although he's Krishna himself. He's accompanied by his servants, his weapons, his associates, and his personal associates. I mean, it's Lord Chaitanya. He's come. And they worship him by chanting Hare Krishna and by pushing on his movement. So then we move ahead. There's some really nice subsequent verses. And this is, I'll just move to text 36. It's covered right up through 40. Text 36, those who are actually advanced in knowledge are able to appreciate the essential value of the age of Kali. Such enlightened persons worship Kali Yuga because in this fallen age, all perfection of life can be easily achieved by the performance of Sankirtan. Pretty intense. Indeed, this is 37. Indeed, there is no higher possible gain for embodied souls forced to wander throughout the material world than the Supreme Lord's Sankirtan movement, by which one can attain the supreme peace and free oneself from the cycle of repeated birth and death. Then 38 and 40, I'm not going to read the whole thing. My dear king, the inhabitants of Satya Yuga and other ages eagerly desire to take birth in this age of Kali, since in this age there will be so many devotees of the Supreme Lord Narayan. These devotees will appear in various places, but will be especially numerous in South India. Anybody from South India? Thank you for your association, Prabhus. This is why I took birth, to get this. I don't know, it's not you. The inhabitants. Anyway, many multiple lifetimes been in this world. So now we got an opportunity to just go back to the Supreme Lord. Here's another favorite quote of mine. This is a conversation that took place between Srila Prabhupada and Tamal Krishna Maharaj in the early days of the Juhu project. And like when Prabhupada was trying to establish the Sri Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir, he was blocked. He was actually blocked by his godbrothers from purchasing land, believe it or not. And so he called in what he considered to be his most effective manager, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, to solve the problem, and he solved it. And then in Juhu, it was like really intense, all the challenges that devotees faced. Many devotees were getting malaria from getting bitten by mosquitoes at night. It was just they were getting typhoid from not having proper drinking water. At any rate, one day, Tamal Krishna Maharaj exclaimed to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, how can I think of Krishna? My mind is simply filled with temple finances. And Prabhupada, yes, this was this Prabhupada's response, yes. Many lifetimes we've wasted on ourselves. If just in this one lifetime we can dedicate heart and soul to pushing on Lord Chaitanya's movement, then at the end, even if we're not completely perfect, Lord Chaitanya will personally come and take us back to Godhead. That's what happened to my friend Nirguna, my Sankirtan partner for 18 years. Every time I say that, I just get shivers of ecstasy because it was so powerful, his departure here in Mayapur. Just miracle after miracle. Back to the spiritual world, my dear friend Nirguna. Okay, so before we move into Padmapad Prabhu came here just to see whether I could fit 4 classes into 1 hour. So before we end this class, are there any questions or comments on the verse purport? Any chastisements? Anybody ready to fully surrender to pushing on Lord Chaitanya's movement now? This is the test, whether I said the right things or not. And the best way to get the potency to fully surrender is, guess what? Shashikant knows the answer. Can you say it really loud over the fan? No? You don't know? You know. Come on. Yeah. And of all the instructions of the spiritual master, the blank, blank, blank is the most essential. This is Prabhupada. Chanting 16 rounds. So if you get to the platform where you're actually chanting offenselessly, with that comes remarkable empowerment to push on Lord Chaitanya's movement. And with that empowerment comes the capacity to give tremendous amount of pleasure to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna. And because they'll be pleased, will you ever be pleased? Okay, so if you haven't got it yet, I've got a copy in my bag here for you. Japa affirmations. It's transformed the lives of hundreds and hundreds of devotees. I distributed over 800 in the last year here in Mayapur. And right, Shashikant? Was your life transformed by it? Was your life transformed by reading that book? Okay, so he's just one out of many. People coming up to me. Actually, maybe it was about 1.5 years ago I started distributing them. But, yeah, transformed? You want one? Okay, you got it. I got your name on it already, okay? You got to let me know how you like it, though. That was one of my lines in book distribution. I give a Bhagavad Gita out, and then, so that the Christians wouldn't look at the pictures of Christians. I don't want that. And I said, here, let me put my name in it, and then you can let us know how you like it, okay? I told this story to like 300 devotees that were on yatra from Pune about 3 weeks ago. And then at the end of my discussion, I handed out Mahatma's books. I was told by, what's the name of the guy? Kanai Thakur. Kanai Thakur? Yeah. He told me there was like 100 people, about half of those devotees spoke English. So all 150, and some people took a whole bunch of them, I guess for their relatives. And then then each one of them came up and had me put my name in it because I told them my Sankirtan line, So I would put my name in the book, and then they would think, is this guy the author or something? And I say, this book, and then I'd ask him a question. Which do you like better, pleasure or pain? I'd ask the guy. At first I'd make friends with him a little bit. And then the guy would say, well, pleasure, of course. And I'd say to his wife, ma'am, I think you married the right guy. And I said, this book will tell you how to achieve the highest possible level of pleasure available to a human being. Whew. And then I'd say to him, before you go, buddy, do me one small favor. Whatever you do, don't stay up all night long reading this book. You promise? Okay, and I get the guy to promise me, and then I hand in a book, and I say, we don't sell the books, we just ask everyone to give a donation and help cover the printing costs. 85% sale rate, because that's what everybody wants. They want to be happy. Ananda Mayo Bhyasat. It's a quality of Krishna, it's a quality of each one of you. So how to do it? Real happiness? Chant Hare Krishna. Push on Lord Chaitanya's movement and you'll be in bliss. You'll experience happiness. As Prabhupada, there was a motto in the early days of ISKCON, stay high forever. This was to attract the hippies who were interested in getting high. But it worked, so many hippies, now they're gurus and GBCs and Hare Krishna. Okay, no questions or comments? Okay, so stay high forever, chant really good rounds. Okay, so Sita Devi's Avirbhav. Now Krishna and his expansions, when they come to the world, when they manifest, they bring their internal Shakti with them. Srimati Radharani came with Krishna, and Ram, he brought Sita Devi. Lord Nityananda brought Janavi Devi. So it's standard practice. And sometimes, devotees, they focus more on the male, the Krishna aspect rather than the internal energy aspect. But they're equally important. Srimati Radharani is the having a senior moment here. The internal energy, the external energy, the Tasta Shakti. Drawing a blank on the Sanskrit for the internal energy from Nectar of Instruction. Huh? Antaranga. Antaranga Shakti. Okay, so that is what a devotee, when he's empowered by Krishna, he operates under, just like Mahārāja Parīkṣit. He saw the cow, he saw the bull. This is the result of being within the Antaranga Shakti, as opposed to the Bahiranga Shakti. So we may be in a transitional stage. We are really attached to the Bahiranga Shakti, the external energy, but if we chant really good rounds, we'll get rid of the anarthas, which are created by the Bahiranga Shakti, and enter under the control of the Antaranga Shakti and be empowered and experience real happiness. Okay? So, Sita Devi is a personification of this internal energy in Ram Lila. Ram was an ideal king. That's so pukka in every regard, as was King Yudhishthira. This reminds me of a little, there was one thing I left out from this, the Bhagavatam verse. That's really nice. And this is a description, I think it's from the 12th chapter of the first canto, the glorification of Mahārāja Yudhishthira. What an amazing king he was. And in the Purport, Prabhupada gives an analogy of how a father, he is so kind to his son. He wants his son to be much greater than he is. Remember now, if you fall asleep in a Bhagavatam class, if I were the dictator in North Korea, it'd be a big problem. Okay. Okay, lost the train of thought here. So like the father, he's always looking out after the interests of the son, not his own interest. He doesn't care. Just like Mahārāja Parīkṣit, it wasn't out of some kind of personal aggrandizement that he was touring the kingdom, to conquer everything. He just wanted to, get rid of the influence of Kali. And, he was about ready to wipe out Kali personified, but then Kali surrendered, and anyway, I'll save that for future Bhagavatam classes so I don't run out of time here, get in trouble. Okay, so this is a very auspicious day, and Sita Devi sees the emblem in our tradition of chastity. Matter of fact, Sri Devi Mataji, she's on the Grahastha Vision team. The Ramayana should be required reading for every probably husband and wife before entering the Grahastha ashram, so that they get an understanding of what chastity is all about. It's not just that okay, so we're in a conservative environment, but in one sense, the chastity of a woman, and Sita Devi personified that. When Kashat, what was her name? Krishna. Kaikeyi. When Kaikeyi had two boons that Mahārāja Dasarath had given her. And so just when, I think it was like the day before, Ram was to be enthroned as the emperor, as the king. Then Kaikeyi said, no, I want my son Bharat. And I want Ram to be exiled for 14 years. So then Ram told Sita, Shanti, you just stay here. I'll be gone for 14 years. But Sita just went with him. Chastity, personified. And was willing to undergo all kinds of hardships. Okay, so let's get back into her appearance. I jumped ahead a little bit on that. But that's the key. That's the key point about Sita Devi. And, with the chastity of a wife, also husbands should be chaste. We don't usually use that phraseology to describe a husband. But it's not like the husband goes here and there and, my wife's back home, I don't care, But what is that chaste mood? It basically means I will do what's necessary in service to my husband to allow him to make spiritual advancement, to go to Krishna. That's the responsibility of a chaste wife. And this is exactly what Sita personified. Okay, so her appearance day. Tell a little bit about this. I got two more personalities to glorify, so I won't go too deeply into this. But Janaka Maharaja, there was a drought in Mithila, and under the advice of Brahmanas, Janaka Maharaja performed a big yajna. And at the end of the yajna, the Brahmanas advised, the yajna was to restore sufficient rainfall. And I'm going to deflect. There's one little story that I just want to tell. One time there was I was teaching a group of devotees online, Nectar Devotion, in Indonesia. And one of them told a story of how there was severe drought in Indonesia. And it was heavy. People were starting to starve. And Tvaṁ Kṛṣṇa Maharaj was there with a group of devotees. And the word got out that Tvaṁ Kṛṣṇa Maharaj was going to lead Harinam Sankirtan. And he guaranteed that the rain would come as a result of that. And I think it made it public. I even went into the newspapers. And everyone was like, oh my God, what are people going to think if it doesn't start raining? So they did the Harinam. Everyone was in ecstasy. And guess what? Shortly after the Harinam was over, started raining. So it worked. Okay. So at any rate, then the Brahmanas, after the yajna, they advised Dasarath to, Janaka Maharaja, got my characters mixed up here, to plow the earth. So he had this golden plow, and he had the oxen pulling the bulls, and not oxen but bulls, and all of a sudden, as he was plowing, the tip of the plow came up against a golden box. It was an unusual thing to have happen. So it opened the golden box, and guess who was there? Anybody guess? That's it. So I've heard different versions of this, but in Sanskrit, the tip of the plow is referred to as Sita. All right? I've heard different things, when you do things on Google, it's not always fully authorized. But this came from the ISKCON Vrindavan website, so I trusted that. So she got the name Sita, and it was a miraculous appearance. And the daughter of Bhumi, talking about Bhumi, you know, the cow today. So things are all interconnected in Krishna's pastimes and Ram's pastimes. Okay, so then one last pastime of Rama, and then we'll move on, of Sita. And this was that Janaka's ancestors were blessed with this celestial bow that Lord Shiva had used to kill Tripasura. And it was super heavy, you know, and then Sita, somehow or other, she started worshipping the bow, and she would just very easily lift the bow up and clean the table that the bow was sitting on. And when Maharaj Janak heard about this, he was just like flabbergasted. And so then he realized, yeah, I got to get her married to the right guy, okay? So he did a swayamvar, sacrifice, and this was, you know, the tradition in Vedic culture, where a king would arrange for his daughter's marriage by having an open invitation to all these kshatriyas to come, and there'd be some kind of a competition, and the winner of the competition would get the hand of his daughter. And so, guess what? Guess who got the hand of Sita? Ram. Because he took the bow up and he was stringing it, and he was so powerful that the bow just snapped in two. So they ended up getting married. And okay, so I'm not going to describe the well, I actually mentioned about the banishment of, you know, how Ram was banished for 14 years and Bharat was made the king. So just mentioned that briefly. I won't go into the kidnapping of Sita, but just one episode after another, just the deep devotion and chastity of Mother Sita, which is, you know, how we can, I mean, there's some countries, what's the divorce rate in America now? Maybe about 50%, something like that. I've heard, you know, that the divorce rate in ISKCON in America is even higher. But, you know, and in India, you know, divorce is starting to creep in, you know, Kali Yuga, Ki Jai. But, you know, this can all be eliminated with proper chastity of both the wife and the same service, Krishna conscious service mentality of the husband. Okay? Questions, comments, chastisements? No? Come on, are you guys all sleeping? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Rajendra Kumar Prabhu. Okay, where's that mic? Quick. Run, run. We're running out of time. Quick, quick. Turn it, wait. We got a deaf old man here. Turn it on. Is it on?
It's about the first part
nice
of the
and close
class.
to your lips. Don't kiss it, but come close to it.
The question is about the first part of the class that I didn't catch properly, that you say like Mahārāja Parīkṣit was getting this vision of the cow and the bull in vision, or what this was real? I didn't catch.
No, they existed, but they were only revealed to Mahārāja Parīkṣit. Okay, because he had a strong desire to see them. He wanted to root out Kali's influence. That was his reason for touring. And ordinary people couldn't see him. It was only revealed to Mahārāja Parīkṣit. Tigache?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, my question is...
I know you from this lifetime or previous births? Or? You look familiar. Okay, nice and loud, okay?
Okay. My question is, you were talking about a book which changed lives. So,
Yes, speak louder.
my question is, you were talking about a book that changed lives. So, I wanted to know what the book is all about and what that book is.
Oh, that was just Bhagavad Gita. I'm sorry, I left that out of the commentation.
Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. We did huge. I mean, there are a lot of devotees, and I was, the time I was using that line, I was National Sankirtan leader in America. I had the service of getting book distribution going again because it had pretty much stopped. There were only 3 full-time book distributors in America in 1987. The big collapse of our movement in America during those years. And so my vision was, and it was shared by a lot of devotees, that the reason the collapse took place was because the focus that Srila Prabhupada placed on book distribution had been lost. The temples became bases for business. I understand how it happened, because after Prabhupada left, there was an exodus of many devotees. The temples were supported by book distribution during Prabhupada's presence. Congregational development hadn't started in America during Prabhupada's time. It had started in India, but not in America. And so there were many devotees going out and doing really big, but then it came to a grinding halt. And devotees were asked to engage in business practices because it produced more money. I mean, in 55th Street Temple in New York, it cost $50,000 a month to heat in the wintertime. Can you imagine that? That goes way back to 1978, 79. So obviously the temple didn't have the heat turned up very much, because it was too darn expensive. So it was cold. Took some pretty cold showers in January and December and January. All right? Anything else? Yes. Please, quick, run. We don't have much time. The clock is ticking.
Thank you for this delightful class. And I really like the suggestion that Ramayana should be compulsory reading for prospective grihasthas. I'm going to incorporate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, they should. Grihastha Vision Team, they were formed because there were so many challenges that devotees faced in the Grihastha ashram. They didn't have a proper understanding. Proper understanding is right in the Ramayana. If that's employed, a lot of things will be cleared. And, the culture in the West doesn't support proper marriage. It's because it's all about sense gratification. Unfortunately, that same culture is creeping into India. I mean, the transformation that's taken place in India since I moved here in 97. I mean, I came for the first time in 81, but it's phenomenal. You just see all these young girls walking with tight pants and provocative tops, and it wasn't like that when I came. They were very chaste, and then I go back into America, I'd be shocked. But I'm shocked now here in India. So it's important, and part of chastity is dressing modestly, so that one isn't dressing to attract the opposite sex. Hare Krishna. So, okay, I'm going to cover Janavi Devi in 2 minutes, and then Madhu Pandit in 30 seconds. Okay, no. Yes, Prabhu? I'm your servant. You sure? Okay. So she was born in Shalagram, and that's, according to Google Maps, is a 2.5-hour drive. It's kind of west-southwest of Mayapur. She had a very pious father, Suryadas Pandit. He was an important post in the service of the king of Goda. And there was an elderly Brahmin in a village close to Shalagram that advised, because he could understand that Suryadas was interested in getting his 2 daughters married. So he came to Suryadas and said, in the village of Ekachakra, Radhadesh, are a couple named Hadai Pandit and Padmavati Devi. They were Vasudeva and Rohini in their previous lives in Krishna Lila. Balaram has become incarnate as their son Nityananda. Nityananda traveled to all the places of pilgrimage and performed many austerities and became a great scholar before becoming to Navadvip and becoming Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dearest associate. He is the eternal husband of your two daughters. So Janavi Devi, she didn't have any sons, but Nityananda's Shakti, Vasudeva, gave birth to Virabhadra Goswami and Ganga Devi, who are incarnations of Shirodakshai Vishnu in the river Ganges. Okay, so there were two daughters. Wait a minute, my notes are confused here. Okay, so Vasudha and Janavi. Janavi was Revati in her previous birth in Balaram Lila. Okay? So Nityananda descending with his Shakti. Balaram previous birth, Revati in her previous birth, Nityananda Chaitanya Lila, and Janavi Devi in Chaitanya Lila. There's the bell. Questions, comments? Rotten tomatoes? No. In America, if you don't like a speaker, you just throw a rotten tomato at him. Hit him in the head. Okay? All right, so any questions or comments we can do offline, so don't get in trouble. And I do have a few copies in Russian and in English of japa affirmations if you want to become an empowered servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. I warn you though, if you become you're going to have to work super hard and be super enthusiastic and super determined, because the challenges are enormous in Kali Yuga, but the benefits are unbelievable, and you'll go back to the spiritual world at the end of your life. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.